You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be removing an entire movie series comprising 5 movies, and that is the Shaft film series. Now, there will be spoilers in this video, so you have been warned. So this is going to be kind of a loose, kind of structured review, because obviously all my reviews are unscripted, and this one I don't really have a set plan of how to do it, because I'm reviewing 5 movies. And full disclosure, it's been several months since I've seen the first 4 Shaft movies, but I actually just barely got done watching the 5th one. So, Shaft is a series about a private investigator named John Shaft, and then it later brings in his son and his grandson, John Shaft II and III. Now, his son is originally believed to be his nephew in the 4th movie, Shaft 2000, but the thing is, that was a lie, because in the new one, it's actually revealed that John Shaft Sr. is the father of Samuel L. Jackson's John Shaft II, because he has a line of dialogue where he says, "You were a great father when you stopped pretending to be my uncle." So I really liked that because it makes them even more connected. So again, it's a very loosely structured thing, so I'm just going to kind of be jumping all over the place, so bear with me on that. But the Shaft movies are great. They are a milestone in action movies, in blaxploitation movies, in crime movies. They're fantastic. The first 3 especially were very, big in the blaxploitation craze of the 70s, and the 4th one was just a straight-up crime thriller, whereas this new one was an action comedy. All of them have elements of each of these things in them, but different ones prioritize different genres. Even though the last 2 movies don't focus on the original Richard Roundtree John Shaft I, he is in both those movies. And so it's really good that they continue to keep the character in, even though he's now a side character, or a supporting character, rather. Shaft is a private investigator. The original John Shaft was just a private investigator who played by his own rules and didn't listen to, the police when they would come and hassle him for his over-the-top methods. He didn't work for the police, obviously. He was a private investigator, and he was causing all sorts of trouble all the time. The first movie, he's going around trying to solve a kidnapping of this crime lord's daughter. This crime lord is a guy by the name of Bumpy, and Bumpy's daughter gets kidnapped, and Shaft goes to find her, and that's the whole plot of the first one. The second one, he has to solve a murder case that's tied to the Mafia, and this guy owing money to the Mafia, and it's the most action-packed of the series. The second one is entitled Shaft's Big Score, and I'll go over how I rank these movies after I give a kind of summary of how they all play out. And that's a whole big action-packed thing with big explosions, and it had twice the budget of the first movie. Anyway, the third movie is called Shaft in Africa, where Shaft has to go to Africa to solve a human trafficking ring and stop that from happening, where these people are basically selling slaves. I mean, they're not entirely slaves, but they're people who are given really shitty pay and, shitty accommodations, and they're sort of tricked into it, so it's basically slavery. And he has to figure that out and get that fixed. The fourth one, just entitled Shaft, but I'll refer to it either as Shaft 4 or Shaft 2000, interchangeably. But in the fourth one, Samuel L. Jackson plays John Shaft II, who, in that movie, is said to be John Shaft I's nephew, but it is revealed in Shaft 2019, or Shaft 5, that it is actually his son, and he was pretending that he was his uncle because, I assume because he didn't want to have the responsibility, or maybe it was to try and keep him safe in some way or another. It's not really elaborated on, it was just kind of a funny joke thrown in there, and a nice tie to it. The fourth one is actually about this racist killer who flees the country and comes back, and he's this rich guy who's basically buying his way out of everything, and Samuel L. Jackson Shaft has to figure that out and stop him. And now that brings me on to the newest one, Shaft 2019, or Shaft 5. Samuel L. Jackson Shaft is prominent in it, as well as his son, played by Jesse T. Usher, who I'm not familiar with other than this movie, but he does a fantastic job. And in this one, it's about Jesse T. Usher's John Shaft III, or JJ, playing a FBI data analyst whose friend, who's a war veteran, gets murdered, and it's made to look like a heroin overdose, and he's trying to figure out who killed him and why. And then he finds out it's this whole big smuggling ring, and he goes and gets the help of his father, Samuel L. Jackson's John Shaft II, and then later, in the last little bit of the movie, they go and get John Shaft I in it too, and it's great. It has all 3 of them in it. The newest one is a lot more comical than the others, but that's actually to its advantage. It's very witty and over the top, and I love it. I loved every second of all of these movies. So, John Shaft I is my favorite of the 3 Shafts. Samuel L. Jackson's I wasn't the keenest on in Shaft 2000, I'm not gonna lie, but he had a lot more personality and development in this in Shaft 2019 or Shaft 5. Granted, I still liked him in the previous one because there's not been a single one of these movies I've disliked. I just feel like they made him more badass as an old man, ironically, than he was back in 2000. And this new Shaft is great. So the whole plot point in the new one is that John Shaft III, JJ, was basically kind of turned into this kind of wimpy, stereotypical, just try to be a nice guy and, not cause problems, kind of modern day, just be a good boy. As the movie goes on, he becomes more and more like his father and eventually becomes Shaft. He doesn't even go by Shaft for most of the movie, he just goes by JJ. It's not until the final scene that he actually decides to start going by Shaft and embrace the fact that he's one of them. It's loaded, these movies are loaded with over-the-top action, occasional one-liners, and just tons of testosterone, and I love it. The Shaft series is by far my favorite blaxploitation film series, and blaxploitation is very much a dead genre these days, so it's good to see another Shaft come in, and I love it, because the blaxploitation film genre is one that I feel like just kind of died out. It was a thing of the 70s, and then it was just gone. There's been a few movies that are callbacks to it, but this, I feel, was the most successful attempt to bring back one of those old franchises. So how would I rank these movies? Well, my favorite of them is still probably Shaft's Big Score, which is the second Shaft movie. A close second would be this new one, actually, Shaft 2019, or Shaft 5. Again, and it's also just titled Shaft. There's actually 3 movies that are just titled Shaft. But this newest one is probably my second favorite, just because I really liked it a lot. My third would probably be Shaft in Africa. I really like that one a lot as well. Then the original Shaft. The only reason the original is not higher on the list is because it's kind of slow, and most of the cool stuff that happens is in, like, the final scene. I can excuse that because it came out, like, right in, like, 1970 or 1969, something like that. It was, like, right at the beginning of this whole craze. In fact, in a way, I think Shaft kind of started the blaxploitation phase, which is a really campy, over-the-top phase that I love to go back and watch these old movies. Obviously, fifth, which would be the last, would be probably Shaft 4 or Shaft 2000. Not that I dislike that movie, because I really like all of these movies. I just say I didn't like it as much as I've liked the other 4. Part of why I love these movies is they're just great action movies. They have interesting characters, and the main character is just a badass motherfucker, and that's his whole point. If you haven't seen the Shaft movies, you are missing out immensely. These movies are fucking amazing. Obviously, the whole campy blaxploitation phase that's fun to go back and look at don't really get made anymore, and there's not really a point to it either, because obviously probably just wouldn't fit in today's society, but they're very much a product of their time. But bringing back this franchise specifically made me super happy, and I would love to see them do more. If you haven't seen this movie, you should go pick it up, the new Shaft, Shaft 2019 specifically. I mean, get all of them. They're fucking great movies, but get this new one especially so that they can get encouraged to make another one, because this is by far one of my favorite movies I've seen this year. I'd still say it's not quite as good as, say, Joker, but it's probably my second favorite movie of the year. If you don't know, Shaft itself was actually the inspiration for the parody movie Black Dynamite, which actually later became its own TV series on Adult Swim as well. Curiously enough, the first time I ever heard of Shaft was in a Simpsons episode, One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish, when Lisa and Bart are singing karaoke at the sushi bar, and they're singing the Shaft theme song, which was composed by Isaac Hayes, who, if you don't know, is the guy who played Chef on South Park. And he was also a smooth kind of, I don't know if you'd call him jazz or soul, but he did that kind of music back in, like, the 70s and such. And that's why he got the role as Chef in South Park, because Matt Stone and Trey Parker really liked him because of his music and basically wanted to make Chef a parody of him, but then they actually got him himself to voice him, which was great. But that's a whole other tangent for another day. But yeah, definitely check out Shaft if you haven't seen it. There's not really a whole lot I can go into here. They're just great action movies, and if you like action movies, this is definitely something to check out. Bit of a short video for 5 movies in one review, but that's simply because I want you guys to go out and see it. I don't want to spoil absolutely everything, and although there's spoilers in this, I don't think they're super major spoilers, and I still think you should see the movies. This has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a great day.
Why don't you stop playing with yourself, Willie? You ain't gonna do shit.